To my live. We have our light on. We're going to get our poll question in. Hello, Wayne. Good morning, Julie. Hi, Debbie Sue. Hi, Andy Bond. We are going to talk today as soon as I can get the poll question in here. We'll get our poll question started. Of course, all of this stuff should have been done before the live started. But we're going to talk about, no, that is in the chat. So that's not what I want. We'll go to poll. There we go. So you all are watching me start late here. That's okay. We're going to get going. I think last week I didn't even have a poll because I started so late and wasn't ready. So that is our poll. And then now I'm going to put in my pinned comment and then we are going to get going here. Okay, let's get going because I don't want to take too much time, but for all of my people who watch your analytics, just before this live, I was watching Tiff's Take, and that's her name, her channel. And she talks about YouTube growth for small YouTube creators and YouTube analytics. And so, what I hopefully, can anybody hear the fan in the background? I hope not. Somebody let me know if you can hear the fan in the background. Hi, Lisa. Thanks for being here. And so, okay, thank you, Catherine. So I'm going to keep going because I'm trying to cool the place down without having a lot of AC noise. That's our goal here. Hi, Christiana. Christiana is here. And so I was talking about just a second ago, which has nothing to do with our topic. We're going to get on the topic like right away. Is just before this live, I was watching Tiff's Take because she has a new video out talking about how YouTube actually monitors your posts, which I had not heard of before. Now, there are a lot of my friends here on YouTube in my community that watch their analytics because they're really trying to have a strategy to grow their channel. So I'm recommending Tiff's Take if that's what you are doing. If you really want to get into the analytics, she takes you into advanced mode. So I just wanted to say that I was watching that before my live. So let's talk about this, and hopefully people can relate to this topic, which is what I'm going through right now, which is why I chose the topic, is childhood financial trauma. And so the question is anybody here, does your childhood, if you look back, either how your parents handled money, whether you had money, didn't have money, had the fear of not having money. Let's say your family was very wealthy, but you always had this fear that something was going to happen and the money was going to go away. Or your family was wealthy and the money did go away. That's another one. That wasn't my story. But what I'm saying is this can affect anyone from any socioeconomic demographic, is what I'm saying. So let's talk about this. Some of our money habits, they really are deeply buried. One of mine, because we'll start with me and my stories, is that I don't ever want to be viewed as being poor. Doesn't matter how much money I have. If someone views me as being poor, that affects me. Now, that does not mean that I go out and just spend money to look wealthy. I don't. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is if I am not handling my money correctly and I feel like other people are handling their money correctly, then they're looking at me like, why aren't you handling your money perfectly like we're handling our money perfectly? Now, nobody does this perfectly. This is all in my head, that other people are handling their money perfectly. See, and that's what I'm trying to say. A lot of my financial trauma is all in my head. I worry about, for many, many years, becoming homeless again. And a friend of mine said, Daryl, you're never going to be homeless again because I've built up so many assets and so many barriers between myself and homelessness. A whole bunch of bad circumstances would have to happen in order for me to become homeless again. I mean, a lot of bad circumstances. I built up all these barriers so that I could guarantee myself that I'll never be in that situation again. Now, did I overdo it? Yes. That's my point. I didn't just say, oh, well, I have good money habits so that I won't become homeless again. I live below my means so that I won't become homeless again. No. I built up barrier after barrier after barrier, wall after wall after wall of assets so that I can sleep at night. And that's the pillow test. We all have the pillow test in our finances, whatever that is. We want the paid off home so that we can sleep at night. We want a lot of cash so that we can sleep at night. For me, what I did was I built up my real estate portfolio so that I can sleep at night. I would have to sell many, many properties before I would have no more properties that I could potentially live in so that I would become homeless. A whole lot, like I said, a whole lot of things would have to happen. And so, right now in the poll, we have 70% who have answered yes to the poll. And so, uh, Gracie LaGrace, she said, I grew up in Uruguay, South America, and middle class as my father had a good job. Here in Australia, I was homeless with 3 small children. Migrating sometimes means no family support. And see, that's what I'm saying. My mother, and we'll talk about, me and growing up because she mentioned 3 small children. My mother was 19 years old with 3 children and 3 shopping bags. And we're talking like the plastic shopping bags like we have today. That's what I'm saying. 19 years old with 3 children and 3 shopping bags. And she moved in with her sister. So, I'm going to try and stop, not cry, because all this stuff is apparently emotional. But that really struck a chord with me because that's where I came from. See? So that's where I started. That kind of poor. And so growing up, what my mother would do is she would work extra jobs during the holidays. And so that we could have some sort of a Christmas. Now, a lot of times we got toys from the clothes closet, the community closet and stuff. So the toys didn't have all the parts and pieces. But my point is that what I learned, and excuse all my emotions, I didn't know that was going to happen this morning. But what I learned was that you have to work multiple jobs if you want to be okay. That's what I saw my mother doing. And so that's what I've done. Just unconsciously as an adult, I have worked multiple jobs most of my adult life. And part of it was because I was always low income. I was always making just above minimum wage. Whatever job that is that pays you $1 or $2 above minimum wage, that's the kind of jobs I had. A technician, a copy repair person. I never rose up in the copy repair business to be like an assistant manager or somebody that made decent money, right? I was always just the technician working on the lowest level copy machine or the mid-level copy machine, but never the top of the line copy machine. See, I never rose up in whatever job I had. So money was always a stressor. Paying rent was always a stressor. There was a time where I could only afford to rent a room. I could not even afford to rent my own apartment. And so that was a big deal for me. Um, and so I'm going into the comments because I'm getting emotional and I haven't even started yet. So that's not boding well for the rest of the stuff we're going to go through here this morning. Um, but I'm loving the comments that people are really thinking about and talking about, what affects them and their money habits today. So please read the comments because they're coming so fast that I can't hardly read them. And Gracie is saying, bless her, I sure know the feeling, my beautiful friend. I encourage you to watch Pepe Mujica, the late Uruguayan president. He speaks about this and how poor is poor of mind, but we know struggles, right? And that's what we're talking about. It's not about being poor in the mind and saying, oh, the world is against me. See, that's not me. I've never been the person that says, oh, it's the world's fault. It's the government's fault. It's so it's no, all of my stuff is my fault. I take full responsibility for not paying the IRS in 2025, so now I'm paying them in 2026. Okay? I take full responsibility. So what I want to say is that this is not about saying, well, because I was poor, I did this. No. What I'm saying is, what we're talking about today is trying to undo some of those hidden habits that we have that, one, sabotage us. And we wonder, why do we sabotage ourselves? Why does someone go out and buy a brand new car with $1,000 car payments when they could have bought a reliable vehicle with $500 car payments? Now, my Honda Accord, which I bought years and years ago, so it doesn't really compare to car prices today after COVID, was $476 a month. Now, would I go out and buy a $1,500 a month car? No. Can I get another car for $500 a month? No. So, if I don't save up money and put money aside, which is what I'm learning now in my money habits, is to put money aside for future expenses. If I don't do that, which again, I'm just beginning, so, it's slow getting that train out of the station. But if I don't start putting money to the side, in 3 years or 5 years, when I need another car, I won't have any money for a down payment. I won't have money to pay cash for the car. If I start saving now and my car lasts me a long, long time, which I'm praying it does, I could have enough to pay cash for a car. But that's a future money habit. So type yes in the chat if your childhood affected your current money habits or affected your habits earlier in life. Maybe some of you have worked through those childhood traumas. See, and I wasn't even thinking about my mother being 19 with 3 children, until I read that in the comments. But let's talk about some of the things that maybe affected our relationship with money, right? And so poverty is one of those, and I talked about this, that they started busing, and this is what sort of set it off. Was I was doing a walk and talk video, and I was talking about how in California, I'm from the San Francisco Bay Area originally, and they started busing in California when I was in the first grade. So I went from my neighborhood, which was sort of in the poor part of town. We'll just say that. We're not saying abject poverty, but we're saying in the poor part of town. And now in Silicon Valley, there is no poor part of town. But way back when, we had a poor part of town. Then you had the wealthier people that lived up in the hills. And they could look out of their homes and look down out over the hills into the poor part of town. But we couldn't, of course, see their homes from our little apartment where we lived, our duplex. But my point is that I was bused up to this school and they had money. Now, this again, I've talked to some of my elementary school friends nowadays, and they said they didn't have money, but they lived up there, and their family struggled financially to stay living up in those hills. But I had one friend in elementary school and junior high school who had a maid. Now, he's the only person I know out of all my classmates who had a maid. But his family came from LA or Hollywood or something. So they had money when they moved to my town. But anyway, my point is that when I would go up and visit my friends, like in their homes, right, they would have like this bookshelf of encyclopedias, and their parents would help them do their homework. Well, my mother couldn't help me do my homework. My mother didn't graduate high school. My father didn't graduate high school. And they were divorced, so I didn't live with my father. He wasn't even there. But my point is that my mother could not help me with my homework. But I saw my friends' parents helping them with their homework. I saw my friends having a bookshelf of encyclopedias, whereas I had to go to the public library to get to an encyclopedia to try to do homework. And so these are all the things that my mind shaped me growing up. And so some of the things are like poverty, eviction. Maybe you were a child and your family was evicted. And you said, you know what? I don't ever want to be evicted. So I'm going to hoard money so that eviction never happens. Job loss. How many of us have been laid off from jobs? I'm one. That's how I ended up working for the federal government. I worked for a company in Vermont, and it was a small company that made like the wiring that goes inside cell phones. And they laid off the entire plant and moved everybody's job to Mexico to save money. So whole families from this little town where this factory was worked at that factory. So the whole family, mother, father, and children, all worked at that factory and all lost their job at the same time, 2 weeks before Christmas. Now, you hear about horror stories like that, where a company lays people off just before the holidays. Well, that's what happened. So, as soon as my boss told me that they were going to make the announcement the next day to the whole factory that they were laying everybody off, I started updating my resume that day and started putting out applications. Again, before the internet. So all of this stuff had to be, faxed or, barely emailed. But there were not online applications like we have today. But here's my point. When I got that job loss and got laid off, I said, I want a job with the government because in my head, government jobs are safe. I didn't know till later that government jobs are not safe and are not guaranteed for life. But that's all I knew at the time. And so again, I took a job for less money for the safety, the emotional safety. And if you're in the chat, has anyone taken a job where they said this job is safer than a different job? Yeah, I can have a higher paying job, but I'll take the job that pays less because it feels safer for whatever reason. And so that's just something for people to think about in the chat. Debt, having a lot of debt. Me coming out of a homeless shelter with all my credit cards in default, a car repossession, right? Starting with nothing. And then moving into an apartment, because we talked about eviction here, and not paying the rent for 3 months. I did that. So at the end of that 3 months, I had a 3-day eviction notice on my door. I had to go to my landlord and beg him not to evict me and say, I promise I will get a second job. I will pay you back the 90 days of back rent. And that's how my journey began. So I've gone through a lot of this stuff. Divorce. My first wife, I met her when I was 15, and I believe we were divorced by the time I was 21, 22, somewhere in there. I had just come back from Korea. And while I was in Korea, she met another guy here in the States. When I was in the Army, I was in Korea. And so when I came back from Korea, she said, well, I met this other guy and I'm going to go with him, so we're going to get divorced. Happens to a lot of military people. So I'm not the only military person that this happened to. Financial instability. Some people have had families where their families moved a lot or their parents got evicted a lot. Financial instability. Maybe they had to go live with a relative because their parents either went to jail or whatever the case may be. That's financial instability. So, and we are really having an active chat. And CL Fantasy is saying that we've been there too. And Christiana is saying that she's in this situation right now. A lot of us are in a situation right now. And I've been watching Christiana for, I don't know, 5 years, 6 years, 7 years. I'm not sure. It's been a while. Christiana and I go way back. And, I've been watching her channel, which motivates me to do better financially. Am I still making mistakes financially even though I'm doing better? Yes. So just because I get better every year does not mean that I don't sabotage myself, which is what I did with the IRS. I took some money from a retirement account and I was trying to close a bank account that this money was in. So I took the money out of the bank account so I could close it. And I said, I'm going to invest in a rental property. And then I said, the cash flow from that rental property will pay the taxes to the IRS during the year. Well, life happened, right? What do we say nowadays? Life was lifing, right? That's new stuff for me. So anyway, life happened in 2025. And there was no cash flow to pay the IRS. And other things happened during my life in 2025. So basically, I sabotaged myself. So then this year in 2026, I had to borrow money from my line of credit that is an unsecured loan. It's sort of like a big credit card, if you will. I had to take that money, go deeper in debt, and pay the IRS because I didn't want to get a payment plan with the IRS. I didn't want the IRS coming to me and saying, you owe us money. And I've done this in the past, but it was never this large of an amount of money. And so I think I've hit my bottom, as we say, and I think that I've hit the wall so that I am going to pay off the IRS, as painful as this is, and I'm not going to do this again. In fact, this year is the first year that I'm making estimated IRS payments. I should have been doing that in prior years. I'm just going to admit it. Should have been doing it. Never did. Never did. I just kept saying, well, I'll just pay them whatever I owe them in April, which I do every year. I'm writing a check every year in April. But why not put the money aside to pay the IRS ahead of time? So that's where I'm at right now. So let's talk about how your nervous system reacts to money. Now, this may or may not be me, but some of you may relate to this. Panic when the bills come. Some people don't even open their mail. I mean, I am such a hawk on my bills. I automate all my payments so that all I have to do, and this is simplifying your life, all I have to do is make sure the money is in the account every month and all my bills are taken care of. Whether I'm traveling, no matter what the case is, make sure Your money is in your account that the bills come out of. That's it. And so I do that. But some people don't open envelopes. Is there anybody in the chat? I'm just looking. Hi, Julie Jordan Scott. JJS is also her nickname. And so, is there anybody in the chat who has ever not opened a bill? Because I tell you, as soon as I see something, anything, I open it. I had, okay, everybody sit down. Daryl's going off to tell a story right now. Just the other day, I had mail from my credit union where I have loans on properties. And they send me annually these letters for each property that I have a loan with them. And it says, we need proof of insurance on your rental property. Otherwise, we're going to buy insurance for your rental property, and it's going to cost you much, much more if we have to buy the insurance. Well, of course, I have insurance on my rental property, but I have to contact my insurance company and get my insurance company to contact the credit union's insurance department. Well, I did that, I don't know, weeks and weeks ago. But then I got 2 more letters just the other day from the credit union. And most of my rental properties were covered, right? My insurance company sent in the proof of insurance. Well, these 2, they said, this is your second and final notice. If you do not show us proof of insurance on these 2 properties right now, immediately, we're going to put insurance on your properties. I was like, well, what did we miss the last time? So, of course, I called them up immediately. One of the properties was insured. They just sent out the letter before they got the information from my insurance company. The other one, we did a 3-way phone call, and I'm telling you, I don't do this very often, so I'm not good with the 3-way phone call on my iPhone. And then they moved the buttons with different updates. I had to figure out, while I had the insurance place at the credit union on the phone, how to call my insurance company and get my representative. I'm from a small town, so we have one person that always answers the phone. To get my one representative on the phone, and those 2 women talked and put insurance on my one property, all in one phone call. See, so that covered, all my different rental properties. But my point is, some people don't open their envelopes when they get something from like the credit union, like I did. Emotional spending. How many of you out there do emotional spending? Right? I did emotional spending. I don't normally do it. However, a couple of weeks ago, I was talking to some friends about my debt with the IRS and my rental properties and why aren't they more profitable than they are? And I went into embarrassment, right? I went into, they are looking at me like I'm poor because they're saying, Daryl, why don't you buy better quality rental properties? Well, I bought what I could afford. I may not be able to afford what you can afford, but I bought what I could afford at the time. Now, could I sell them off over the years and invest in better quality rental properties? Yes. But they said, why didn't you buy that to begin with? Well, I didn't have the money. So, of course, I go into I'm poor mindset. They're looking at me like I'm poor, right? Well, I went out and bought food that I don't normally buy. That was my emotional spending, right? I bought wheat thins, right? And I know I shouldn't be eating wheat thins, but I went out and I bought wheat thins. So that's me. When I go off the rails, right, I buy my comfort food, which is reduced fat wheat thins. So, oh, and Gracie says that she spends a few dollars at the thrift shop. See, so we all, not we all, some of us have emotional spending things. It might be an ice cream on the way home. I've stopped eating ice cream because of my pre-diabetes and now diabetes because they have me on medicine to try and keep it down. But I stopped eating ice cream a long time ago. But people do. Um, let's talk about having the fear of investing. I lost a lot of money loaning money to other investors, other real estate investors, right? Last year, I lost $150,000. And it's not that the money is gone, but I'm tired of waiting for their promises to say that they're going to pay me. I don't ever expect to see that money, so I wrote it off of my net worth statement and I closed the bank accounts because I've been waiting years for these people to give me my 150,000 back. And it didn't happen. So at some point you have to take the loss and say some investments are risky. And because I'm an accredited investor, I can invest in things that regular people cannot invest in. There's a higher return, which I did make some money from the investment, but they still owed me 150,000 gone. So you get a higher return, but there's higher risk. And so I took that higher risk and lost some of the money. Well, I said to myself, we're not doing that again. So other people are investing in these instruments, but I personally will not ever invest in these instruments again just because I lost one time. Actually, twice. I had two separate investments that all added up to that amount of money. So because I lost, other people lose money in those investments and they invest in various different instruments so that all of their money isn't tied up with one or two operators. Well, I had two operators that I trusted and lost money. There are other people that do this who I trust. However, I don't care how much I trust them. I'm not putting any more money into something like that because you lose control. You can make a lot of money, but you don't have any control over what they do or what the economy does to them. So it may not be their fault personally. It may be just the economy, makes their business tank. So, yeah, it's not that, the whole, idea of investing in that kind of stuff, passive investing is bad. It just doesn't work for me. But again, that's a money trauma. I lost a lot of money and I just said to myself, Daryl, there is a point where you have to stop hoping and wishing to get the money back. So let's keep going here because I'm not even a part way in, and how are we? We're halfway through the live. Um, so let's talk again about things that we learned in childhood. I'm going to try and speed this up and get through this, but we learned scarcity, right? I learned from my mother, that we don't have money for things. Now, me being the middle child, that's a whole nother story we're going to go into. My older brother, we had money for his stuff. My younger sister, we had money for her stuff. But whenever I needed anything, as the middle child in my family, we didn't have the money for it. So what that taught me is that I have to depend on myself if I want anything. So I have a hard time depending on my significant other, depending on anybody for anything, because I grew up with the scarcity of Daryl. We don't have money for Daryl. We have money for his brother. We have money for his sister. These are the kinds of things that affect how we handle money today. So my real estate is all in my name. It's not me with a partner. It's not me with somebody else. It's just me. Because I have to get it myself. I have to hold it myself. Because you get other people involved, they could take away your stuff. They could do things to make you lose your stuff. That's me. I'm talking about myself there. So hoarding money, right? My mother, who grew up very poor, my mother, I believe, was the 19th of 20 kids, right? So she was the baby. But here's the point. Because my mother grew up very poor, and I told you, 19, 3 kids, and 3 shopping bags was all she owned, right? So of course we were on public assistance. But my point is, once my mother started getting jobs and making money, right? My mother would buy new clothes, She would hold on to old furniture and have it out in the garage. We had newer furniture, but she had the old furniture from when I was in elementary school, sitting out in the garage, doing nothing. But she wasn't getting rid of that furniture, you know. And I mean, it was just piled up, wasn't even out being used. When my mother sold her house, right, that house had closets and closets full of brand new clothes with the tags on them. That's just how my mother loved her clothes. And so my mother to this day still spends money like that. And she's over 80 years old. She's on a fixed income with very low amount of savings for retirement. Very low. And she still spends money like that. So these habits don't go away for some people. Fear of risk, right? We just talked about that. Me, I lost that 150K, and now I have a fear of taking that kind of risk. I think I'm getting too old to take that kind of risk. And in fact, I'm getting to an age where I'm de-risking, right? I was a cowboy when I was younger. I'm now at an age where it's time to, one, start paying off the debt, and then two, start paying off the rental properties. 5 years ago, paying off rental properties was not even in my thought process. But 5 years later, and doing this channel over the years now, has changed my financial mindset. And that's what I love about my channel, is I'm growing along with everybody, hopefully everybody who's watching my channel. We're all growing financially and doing better financially. So let's talk about the hidden link, what we don't think about, like that dopamine hit that you get when you go out and buy something new. It might be shoes, it might be a purse. You know, for me, it was a car. When I would go out and buy a brand new car, and everyone says, oh, well, you should buy a used car that's a year or two old so that all the depreciation is gone. That big hit of depreciation from the brand new car is gone, and you don't take that hit. Well, that hasn't been me. Why? Because in my past, and again, we're talking prior money traumas, or why I buy brand new vehicles, and also why I buy top of the line vehicle. Because I had a car that was $400, it was $40 down and $40 a month. And that car, the reverse went out in the car. So I would have to open the door and push the car backwards to get the car out of a parking spot. And it was a big old car, right? It wasn't no little tiny car. No, it was a big old boat made of metal. And so I had to push this boat backwards, right? So you learn to park on parking lots where your car can roll back out of the parking. See, you have to learn these things when you have a car with no reverse. And so because I've had these kinds of cars, I have only bought brand new cars, top of whatever line they are, typically Hondas, right? I'm not buying a brand new Cadillac top of the line. I've never had that kind of money. But this is what affects me. Other people can buy a used car. I don't want to buy a used car because I don't know what somebody else did taking care of that car. And I'm suspicious of somebody who has a 2-year-old car and trades it in for whatever reason. What problem did they have with that car that they got rid of it after 2 years? Do I want that problem? No. But if I buy a brand new car, I know the oil changes have been done, every service, every tire rotation, everything has been done on that vehicle that is supposed to be done. See, that's just me. So you may or may not buy brand new cars. Does anybody here buy brand new cars? Oh, so somebody started their channel in 2009. Gracie did. And so Christiana is saying, not having reverse in your car, she had a car where the side door didn't open from the inside, you know. So we've had different things, you know, with our vehicles that affects how we buy vehicles today. And nowadays, which I didn't have way back when, before the internet, but nowadays you have the social media culture, where you're comparing yourself to other people. Now, I don't watch Instagram. I barely keep up with YouTube. So my Facebook page, I'm not on very much. I have TikTok, which I don't go on hardly ever at all. And so I don't do all these other social medias, but I hear about them. The Instagram influencers and how they're buying these purses or these cars, or the guy with the Lamborghini in front of a mansion, right? And saying, well, I've got all this money. How come you don't have a Lamborghini in front of a mansion, right? All of this social media comparison culture, affects people today. It doesn't affect me because I'm old and I just don't care anymore. So that, I guess, is a benefit of being old, is you just don't care anymore. So we've talked about that, the emotional spending, and how our past really influences how we live our lives today. One of the things about me is I don't ever want to owe, right? I don't like owing. So I like to pay off my credit cards and pay off my debt because I don't want to owe. I don't ever borrow money from anybody. I don't go to relatives and say, oh, I need some money this month. No, because I grew up learning there's nobody out there to save me. See, at 18 years old, I left the home and joined the Army. And from that point on, haven't been living at home. I've had to make my own way all these years. So I cannot rely on anyone, whether it's a parent, whether it's a relative. I have learned I can only rely on me. And that's a sad way to be, because a lot of people can rely on their family. They can rely on their friends. I can't. It's in my head that no one is coming to save me. So that's me. So let's talk about these self-sabotage patterns, because I suffer from self-sabotage. I have throughout my whole life. Although I've done better and better and better, either at saving and investing for retirement or whatever it is that I've done to save money and be frugal, right? Over the years, which has built wealth, I've still sabotaged myself. And one of those is not putting money aside for future expenses. That's a big one for me. Excuse me, I have sniffles here. Even though I took my allergy medicine, it's allergy season in South Alabama, so we have sniffles. So avoiding budgets, ignoring debt, and so I sabotage myself by waiting until the end of the year when my rental properties have to have property taxes paid. Well, I'll wait till December, and now I have to come up with $10,000 in the month of December, right? Like, oh, surprise. No, it happens every year. And as I bought more and more rental properties, what happened was it used to be $3,000 at the end of the year. Then it was $5,000 at the end of the year. Now it's $10,000 at the end of the year. It just slowly crept up on me, but I never put the money to the side during the year. And a friend of mine said, well, Daryl, when you get the rent money in, don't you put money aside for property taxes? No. And here's what I told myself. I don't have enough rental cash flow because I bought properties that needed fixing up. So I was putting the money back in to fix up the properties. I didn't have any cash flow. So then, again, I have to put it on credit to come up with that money at the end of the year, and then spend January and February of the next year paying off the property taxes from the prior year. Self-sabotage every year. And I just got used to it. I just said, well, this is how I do business. And so I was able to pay off the credit. So I kept telling myself that's okay. Well, I'm at an age now where that's not okay. So don't do everything that I've done. I built wealth but I sort of did it on a shoestring budget, whereas other people save up money for a down payment. See, I borrow money on my lines of credit, put the down payment down, then pay off the line of credit through my paychecks and rental income and what have you. And so that's just been my pattern and my process. And so now it's time for all that to stop. Hey, Elevated Chills, thank you for coming in. And Catherine says, I don't even buy clothes except at thrift stores. She said, I ain't proud. And I'm telling you, that's me. You know, the clothes, the shirts you guys see, you're going to see the same shirts every week, for the next 10 years. Because I have enough Harley t-shirts in there and these other kinds of shirts that I could rotate through all the t-shirts that I own for at least the next 10 years. There is no need for me to go out and buy brand new shirts. And I'm in retirement, so I don't really need like dress shirts that you would have for work. So some of the examples of self-sabotaging patterns are lifestyle inflation. And I told you guys, I used to buy a brand new car every time I got a pay raise or a promotion at work because I thought I'm making more money, that money could go to a car payment. I never thought that money could go to savings. I never thought that money could go into my retirement account. That's just where I was when I was younger. See, I thought the people who were successful at work had newer cars, better cars. Now, they always had much nicer cars than me. I could buy better Hondas. But they always had like Lexuses or Cadillacs or whatever those nicer cars are. I never could afford those, so I did the best I could with a Honda. That's just me. I tried to look like I was successful with a Honda. So, now here's one. Avoiding raises or opportunities. Have you ever had this? Now, I had my grandchildren tell me this. They said that they didn't want to make more money because they'd have to pay more in taxes. That is coming from how they grew up, where their mother abandoned them and they lived in foster care. And they were taught that in California, you get subsidies for this and subsidies for that. And if you make too much money, you can't get student loans. And they don't want to make more money because they don't want to pay the taxes. I've learned that I want to make more money and I want to pay the taxes. Now, I have a lot of write-offs, so I don't pay a lot in taxes. But my point is that I would rather make more money and have a higher tax bill than to make less money and have a smaller tax bill if I had the choice. So let me ask you this. What financial habit are you trying your hardest to break right now? Mine is not putting money to the side for future expenses. That's the habit I'm trying to break. My car insurance, every 6 months, car insurance comes up. And next week, I have to pay car insurance. So I put the money aside to pay the car insurance. Now, I did this in May. See, here's my point. I know car insurance is coming up in June. I put the money aside in May. That's not the way to do it. That's a little better than waiting until June and then just putting it on a credit card. Okay, and then paying it off in July. That's a little better. But what I'm doing is I'm going to put a little over $100 a month starting in June every month for the next 6 months. So that when the car insurance comes up in December, I have that money in my sinking fund. A lot of you have sinking funds. I've never had a sinking fund. And we're not even getting through all of the topics. This may have to be a week 1 and a week 2 on this one, because we're not even through half the topics and my hour is almost over, which tells you that this was a very emotional topic for me. And so, yeah, I'm only halfway through. If you guys would like me to continue this in next week's live and go through the other half of this, put it in the chat, because I should ask. If not, we'll go on to another topic next week. So Christiana is saying the creator Erica Kohlberg, which I used to watch her channel. Um, yeah, I used to watch Erica Kohlberg. I think that she was like an attorney who stopped being an attorney and then became a YouTube creator and was fabulously successful on YouTube. I mean, at the time, she may have had, and this was many years ago, that she may have had 100,000 subscribers at that time. And so, um, and so Julie Jordan Scott says, I have 3 video uniforms set for summer. See, that's what I mean. We don't have to get on here and show a brand new outfit every single week. And trust me, if you go back and look at my lives, you'll see the same 5 or 6 or 7 different t-shirts. I mean, I have more, but that's what I had. Um, yeah, so Catherine is saying to Christiana, I don't pay attention to those I watch and what they wear. So I haven't heard. Oh, Christiana. So Christiana is saying I get compliments on my thrift store tops too. But Christiana has really nice outfits. If you go back and watch some of her older videos, she does lives now, but she has a lot of videos that I've watched over the years, and she has really nice outfits. So I think what I'm going to do is I am going to do a second half of this next week, because apparently I got so into the weeds in this one that I only made it through half of the topics. So um, so and I haven't seen. Good. Lisa J. Stocks is saying that she wouldn't mind a part 2. Thank you. I was hoping somebody would say that they wouldn't mind a part 2. I cannot believe that I only made it through half the topics here, and I guess it's because I'm going through so much right now in trying to turn that big ship around. I am trying to turn around an ocean liner in my finances right now, and it all starts in June. I am doing my end of month budget right now so that I can create a video for you guys to show you how much money I spent, what bills I paid off in the month of May, because in the month of May, I started turning that ship around. Now in June, the ship hopefully will still keep turning, and we will start making progress in June and then in July. And I have 2 classes that start on Sunday. So right now I'm down to 1 class, but I have 2 more classes starting on Sunday. And then in a couple of weeks, in the middle of June, I have another class starting. So I'll have 4 classes going this summer. And in short, what that means is I'll have a little more income coming in as June and July progress. And that money will go towards putting money to the side for future expenses, and it's car insurance, property taxes. One of the things that I'm going to be doing, I may have mentioned this, is paying myself a salary from my rental properties. I've never done that before. But I started just a couple months ago paying myself $500 a month in salary. It will increase over time as I pay off debt, as my rental income cash flow increases, and as I pay off rental properties. All of this stuff, you guys are going to watch me over the years do all these things. They aren't going to happen this year. I will start paying myself a salary from my rentals, because my rental properties are a business. I should be paying myself a salary. Who knew? A friend of mine said, Daryl, are you paying yourself a salary? No. The money just gets poured back into other debts that I didn't save money for. So 1 month, let's say my car insurance is due, I take money, the cash flow from my rental properties, and pay the car insurance. See, I'm robbing Peter to pay Paul every month. And some of you, if you're on a paycheck to paycheck budget, that's another thing. And so I've got 6 minutes, so I'm going to go into another thing, because I'm going to stop this. This was halfway through, where we made it to the halfway point of my topics. We'll pick that back up next week. But one of the things that I wanted to talk about today, which I didn't get to, but we're going to sort of end this live with this, is I watch people on YouTube who are managing their finances, right? I watch a lot of personal finance people. They might use YNAB and show how they budget with YNAB and all these different things. Well, one of the things that some of them do is they are a month ahead on their bills. Put in the chat if you're a month ahead. If you have next month's money already set aside for all your monthly bills before the month starts. That is a place I've always wanted to go. And for the last 3 years, at least, I have watched. Oh, now see, Andy Mon says he's 1 month ahead. See, I love Andy Mon. I do, I really do. But anyway, and I would have expected that from Andy Mon. But here's my point. That's a goal for me. I don't know if that's a goal for you. Part of turning my financial ship around and getting better with my money in my life and saving up cash, that's a dream. Save up cash for my next car purchase. I do not want a car payment. Can I do it? Yes, if I start to fix these other financial sabotage things now. And my car lasts for some more years. So my car only gets driven when I travel around the country to meet other YouTubers and visit friends. Other than that, my car pretty much sits out there and goes to Walmart, every 2 weeks. So my car doesn't get driven unless I'm, traveling around the country. And that's the way I like it. I don't want to run a ton of miles up on my car. I don't. It's sort of hopefully going to be a classic someday. It's a 2-door Honda Accord. One, Honda doesn't make 2 doors anymore. 2, it's a V6, and Honda doesn't make V6s anymore. So it's going to become a rare vehicle someday, and so I want to keep the miles down as much as possible on it. It's got over 100,000, but that's from doing these cross-country trips that I've done since I bought that thing. But let's go back to and end this with talking about getting a month ahead. For a lot of people, that's the first step, in financial security. I want that to be my first step towards financial solvency. And I'll call it solvency. And it would be beautiful because in my entire life, I've never been a month ahead. Because I come from poverty where you give me $1 and I spend it immediately. One of my first jobs, and I'm sure I've talked about this in the past, was babysitting. And I don't know if I was 10 years old, 11 years old, whatever the case may be, but I would get $1 for babysitting. And I would go immediately to the store and buy a pack of cookies. Because we never had cookies in my house. And that $1 represented a pack of cookies. And so that's where my money spending habits came from. You get money, you spend it all. You get money, you spend it all. And you just go paycheck to paycheck. See, so when I started investing and when I started working second jobs and having a side hustle, and that side hustle turned into making more money than my primary job. Well, yeah, now I've got money to invest because I'm making a lot more. But see, back in the day, I used to just work weekends as a security guard. And that's just, sort of what I did because it was sort of easy money. You didn't have to work hard to walk around and turn the key in the clock at different points in the thing. And again, you would make just above minimum wage. So 5 days a week, I'm making just above minimum wage. On the weekends, I'm making just above minimum wage, but I'm working 7 days a week. And that, again, is one of my patterns. So I became a workaholic, which is a whole nother thing for us to talk about in future videos. And so, oh, hi, Mrs. Paula. I haven't said hi to Mrs. Paula or Mike's Adventure Sparks. Hi, Mike. Thank you so much for coming. Mike is a hard worker. Mike, and that snow fishing, ice fishing. Ah, I'm telling you, I did it once. I did it once, Mike. When I lived in Vermont, I ice fished. But all I want to do now is one, go visit friends, two, go fishing, ride my motorcycle. Those are the things that bring me joy in life that do not cost a lot of money. So I'm going to use my excess money to build up that month ahead fund. Now, I owe a lot of money on rental properties, so I don't know that I'll ever have a month's worth of rental property mortgages in the bank. But what I can have is enough for my basic expenses. Right? Let's say when I get my mobile home to have the mortgage money a month in advance. See? So what I do now is I live on $900 a month, which, spoiler alert, wait for my end of month video, I finally did it. I finally did the month of May with under $900 a month. So April was, a train wreck because I was out traveling. So I got back on track in the month of May. Can I stay on track during the month of June? Right? And can I stay on track during the month of July and August and for the rest of the year? See, because I have to plan for the fact that I have to tell Social Security to stop giving me my Social Security check because I'm earning more income from my teaching than Social Security allows at my age. All of these are luxury problems. None of these are problems that I can't deal with if I plan ahead. And that's what we're talking about here. One, being a month ahead on your bills and having that money already sitting in the bank. So you don't have to say, well, when this paycheck comes in, I'll pay this part of the rent. When this paycheck comes in, I'll pay this part of the car payment. I love when I see that on YouTube. Those budgeters who are a month ahead, because it tells me, Daryl, you've got growth to do. And so I have run over my hour. I cannot believe how emotional I got at the beginning of this live. I want to thank everyone here. I want to thank anyone that watches by replay. So if you came in late, please go back and watch the replay. Please take right now to hit the like button, which I forgot to ask everybody to do at the beginning. So I'm going to stay on for about 1 more minute to give people a chance to hit the like button. As an old guy, I go into people's lives and I'm there for 20, 25 minutes and haven't hit the like button because I forget I'm so engaged with the person doing the live that I'm not even thinking about the like button. And that's what happens when you get old, right? You can't remember stuff. And so that's just me, the old guy on YouTube trying to do his finances better. And you all are walking through me turning my financial ship around. So let's do this in 2026. Let's all try to do our finances better from wherever we are. Doesn't matter. Sometimes you're a month ahead like Andy Mon. Sometimes you're a month behind like me. Okay? So no matter where we are, we can all do our personal finances better. That's what I believe. So I'm going to thank everybody for coming. And Andy Mon and Christiana, oh, thank you, thank you, thank you for being here. Christiana, I'm like one of her biggest cheerleaders, And so everybody go watch Well Behaved Wallet. And next week when we come in here, and which I forgot to say, is type the word fire and it will put your channel out there. See? Went through the whole live, never said that. Next week, everybody is going to put their channel out there by typing fire. And I'm going to put that right here in my notes to say that at the beginning of the live stream so that we can all support each other. And that's what I like to do on my channel. So I'm sorry that I went over. And Andy Mon is now typing fire. See, so Andy Mon's channel just came up. Okay, I'm going to stay on for 2 more minutes. I went way over my hour time, but I want people to type fire in the chat. Everybody type fire. We're just going to have a flood of people typing fire in the chat if you're still here. Tiff is here. Um, oh, no, that's not her account. Okay, because I saw her name and I was talking about Tiff's take at the beginning of this live. So everybody go back and watch the beginning of this live where I talked about Tiff's video from earlier today. Um, and so Mrs. Paula typed fire. I'm hanging out just so people can put their channels out there. And I'm going to make more people mods, standard mods, next week so that you can go and click on other people's channels. So most people have probably left already because my hour is way over. So, and I'm not going to run on anymore. Oh, thank you, Christiana just typed fire. So everybody go check out Christiana's channel. Mrs. Paula does Retirement's channel. She does dishwashing diaries, right? I love watching her wash dishes. Yeah, it's the most fabulous thing how she can just talk to her friends while she's washing dishes. It's awesome. It's awesome. You know. So anyway, there we go. So I'm going to jump off of here because I went way over my time limit, and then I got really emotional at the beginning. I did not know that was going to happen. Hopefully next week that doesn't happen. Although you all know me, I'm an emotional person, and so it may happen. We're going to do part 2 of this same topic, and I'm going to get through the second half of healing financial trauma. And we're going to next week talk about the solutions. We're going to get into the solutions. Okay, thank you all for being here. And I will see you all next week. And I will be supporting all of your channels. Just know that during the week. See y'all later. Thanks for coming. And I'm sorry that I went over.